Hello YouTube, it's Mr. Drake here. Today's an important day because we're going to figure out the reasons why we should be getting rid of our debt. And this is stage one of turning our wages into wealth. So everyone, there are three main reasons for wanting to get rid of debt. And those three main reasons are the cost of debt, interest rates, rising interest rates, and the actual repayment of the money borrowed or owed. Number two is the mental benefits, so stress, anxiety, higher self-esteem. And number three is an improved home life, so better relationships with loved ones and colleagues. As anyone who's ever borrowed money will know, it's rarely ever free. You're either going to face an upfront charge for borrowing money, you're going to pay an interest rate on the money you've borrowed or the item that you've purchased on finance, or you're going to pay over the top prices for something that's got a 0% interest rate. The way that interest works is if you were to say borrow £1,000 over 2 years, you would pay approximately £46 a month, and in total £107 of that would be interest payments. Now, while that doesn't seem like a lot, if someone's relying on a loan or a credit card or whatever it may be, they don't have the initial disposable income in order to afford the extra £4 or £5 a month that interest accrues, and the extra 40 something pounds a month, £42 a month of repaying the borrowed money. In the last 10 years, the Bank of England interest rate has been under 2%, and for 9 of those 10 years has been below 1%. Between 1975 and 2008, it had never been below 3%. Banks and moneylenders use the Bank of England interest rate to work out their own personal lending rates. Of course, they add a few percent on for their own profits. So as Bank of England interest rates go up, the interest rates for borrowing are also going to go up. This means that the last 10 years have been very good for borrowers because rates have been so low. But over time, and with a stronger economy, those rates are going to go up and borrowing is going to become more expensive for the borrower and more profitable for the lender. It's worth noting as well that the more money lent or borrowed by an individual, the higher the risk of them repaying becomes. When banks feel like someone has too much debt or are close to having too much debt, the risk becomes so large for them that they feel they need to add a higher interest rate in order to potentially cover losses. This is where credit cards for new lenders or people who are already struggling with debt or have a bad credit record can reach 40+%. My first credit card was at 47%. And this is where debt can become so expensive. What starts off as a small loan for a car or repairing an item of equipment at home can turn, if not managed properly, into credit card debts that are charging 20+% and costing hundreds of pounds a month. As someone who found themselves in a lot of debt very recently, I can still remember and I can still empathise with people who have emotional trouble with debt or are struggling with their mental health as a result of it. There is definitely a correlation between the depth of debt that someone finds themselves in and the severity of their depression. I can attest to this, feeling entirely worthless at my lowest point with £40 in cash, an overdraft that was charging me £1 a day, car, loan and rent payments all due within the next few weeks. I was very good at masking my emotions from the people close to me, but it doesn't mean the fear and the emotions weren't there. The effect of debt on mental health is enough to destroy anyone, and often this has a destructive effect on relationships. I found that my £10,000 of debt made me feel inadequate around my family because they had all taught me and trained me when I was younger to be sensible with my money and always keep an emergency savings. The fact that I owed a best friend over £1,000 meant that I was too embarrassed to talk to my friends about my problems because I didn't want to look like an idiot. That when I went on holidays, if I was lucky enough to go away with family, I'd always be counting every penny I had, worrying that if it was the last time I was going to get income that month, I had to make it last. Everyone around me seemed to be spending money so freely and confidently, and I was wondering whether or not to buy a Cornetto for £1. In some of my previous positions at work, I did a lot of stuff on personal development, And it's the personal development I did that helped me through this time, because a lot of it was focused on managing my state and my emotions, which I was able to do, and that allowed me eventually to focus on the outcome I wanted, which was finding the job that I now have and working my way out of the problem. My partner and her family and my own family had no idea of the total of debt that I was in. My best friend knew that I owed him money. He had no idea of the money I owed elsewhere and the financial burden I was under. He just knew that I wasn't able to repay him. Some may not find it as easy to manage their emotions, or may find themselves in a much deeper hole than I was. It's not uncommon for debt and finances to play a huge part in divorce, and quite often people will isolate themselves from close ones to avoid judgment or avoid being seen as weak, but also to avoid sharing their problems with other people who they don't want to burden with their problems. Parents can often start to resent or regret the financial burden of a child, and that can have a long-lasting effect in the relationship for all involved. All of these are as a result of not feeling in control of your debt or your personal finance problems. You don't need to clear the debt to feel better. You just need to know that you have control of the problem and that you're fixing it. If you're moving in the right direction, you'll begin to feel better. And that's where Wages to Wealth really kicks in. We're going to take back control of our debt problems by taking control of our income and taking control of our spending. That's what the next episode's about, so make sure you don't miss it. We're going to focus on cash flow and how to use our income towards a brighter future.
Rome wasn't built in a day, so like, share, subscribe and stay notified to join the journey.